6 months after the Battle of Earth, Katie stood in front of the largest classroom at the Stellar Academy. The room was packed with students from every corner of the galaxy, all eager to learn what the media had started calling human doctrine. Who can tell me why traditional military formations failed against the Harbingers? Katie asked her class. A student with 6 arms raised 3 of them. Because the formations were predictable, Professor Murphy. Katie smiled. She still wasn't used to being called professor, but she was getting better at it. That's part of it, but there's something deeper. Can anyone else guess? Zarath, who was now Katie's teaching assistant, raised her crystalline hand. Because the formations were designed to be efficient, not surprising. Exactly, Katie said. For thousands of years, galactic civilization has focused on making warfare as efficient and logical as possible. Perfect formations, optimal tactics, minimal waste. But efficiency is predictable. She activated the classroom's holographic display, showing footage from the final battle. Humans don't fight efficiently. We fight desperately. And desperation makes us creative. In the back row, several former Harbinger units took careful notes. After their capture, the ancient machines had been reprogrammed to serve as peaceful advisors and researchers. They were fascinated by human unpredictability and attended every one of Katie's classes. Unit 7742 has a question, one of the Harbingers announced in its mechanical voice. Go ahead, 7, Katie said. She had given the units simple nicknames to make communication easier. Query: how does a species survive by making suboptimal choices? Katie grinned. This was her favorite type of question. 7, show me the most efficient route from the classroom door to my desk. The Harbinger's optical sensors scanned the room. Straight line, 7.3 meters, 4.2 seconds at optimal walking speed. Now watch this, Katie said. She left the front of the room and walked to the door, but instead of taking the direct route back, she wove between desks, stepped on chairs, and even crawled under a table. The journey took 3 times longer than necessary. Professor Murphy, said a confused student, why did you do that? Because now I know things I didn't know before, Katie replied. I know which desk wobbles, which chair squeaks, and where the best hiding spots are. The efficient path taught me nothing new. 7's optical array flashed as it processed this information. Conclusion: inefficiency provides unexpected data that may prove valuable in unknown future scenarios. You're learning, Katie said proudly. The classroom door opened and Admiral Chen walked in. The students immediately stood at attention, but she waved them back to their seats. Sorry to interrupt, Professor Murphy, but we have some important news to share with your class. Katie felt a flutter of nervousness. Good news or bad news? Good news. The Galactic Council has voted unanimously to admit humanity as a full member. Species? The classroom erupted in cheers and applause. Katie felt tears in her eyes. When she had first arrived at the academy, humans had been considered barely civilized newcomers. Now they were full partners in galactic civilization. There's more, Admiral Chen continued. The Council has also approved the establishment of the Strategic Unpredictability Institute here at the Academy. Professor Murphy will serve as its first director. More cheers filled the room. Katie was overwhelmed. A year ago, she had been failing basic courses and feeling like she didn't belong. Now she was being offered the chance to head an entire department. What exactly will this institute do? Asked a student. Admiral Chen smiled. Teach the galaxy how to think like humans, how to be creative under pressure, how to find solutions that seem impossible, and how to survive when survival should be impossible. After class, Katie walked through the academy halls with Zarath. The corridors that had once seemed intimidating now felt like home. Alien students nodded respectfully as they passed, and several stopped to ask questions about human tactics. "You've changed this place," Zareth observed, her crystals glowing warm yellow. "We all changed it," Katie replied. "Humans couldn't have won that war alone. It took everyone working together." They stopped at a window overlooking the spaceport. Ships from dozens of worlds came and went, their crews now trained in the basics of human unpredictability. The galaxy was becoming a more chaotic place, but also a safer one. "Message incoming," announced Katie's personal communicator. "From Captain Lisa Murphy." Katie's heart jumped. She hadn't heard from her sister in weeks. "Play message." Lisa's voice filled the corridor. "Hey, little sister. I wanted you to know that the reconstruction of the Outer Rim colonies is going better than expected. We're using human engineering techniques. You know, the kind that work even when they shouldn't. I think the galaxy is finally starting to understand what makes humans special." The message paused, and Katie could hear the background noise of a busy starship bridge. "I also wanted to tell you that Mom and Dad saw your interview on Galactic News Network. Dad says he always knew you'd amount to something, and Mom wants to know when you're coming home for dinner. The whole family is proud of you, Katie. You saved us all." Katie wiped away a tear. Despite all her success, she still missed home. "There's one more thing," Lisa's message continued. "The Earth Defense Force has been asked to help train alien military units in human tactics. Apparently, everyone wants to learn how to fight like barbarians now. Who would have thought?" The message ended with Lisa's laughter, a sound that reminded Katie of home. "Will you accept the position?" Zareth asked. Katie looked out at the busy spaceport, thinking about everything that had happened. A year ago, she had been a struggling student who felt out of place. Now she had the chance to shape how the entire galaxy thought about warfare, strategy, and survival. "Yes," she said finally, "but not because I want to teach people how to fight. I want to teach them how to think differently, how to find solutions that seem impossible." "And how will you do that?" Katie smiled, remembering her grandfather's advice about being unpredictable. "By being human, by showing them that sometimes the best answer is the one nobody expects." That evening, Katie received another message, this one from an unexpected source. It was from Unit 7742. 7. "Professor Murphy," the mechanical voice said, "I have been analyzing human behavior patterns for 47.3 days. I believe I am beginning to understand the concept you call thinking outside the box." Query: Would you be willing to teach more advanced courses in strategic irrationality? I find your species' approach to problem solving fascinating. Katie laughed out loud. If she could teach a harbinger to appreciate human chaos, she could probably teach anyone. A year later, Katie stood once again in front of a classroom, but this time it was much larger. The Strategic Unpredictability Institute had grown to become one of the most popular departments at the Academy. Students came from across the galaxy to learn human tactics, and many of them went on to revolutionize their own military and civilian organizations. The war with the Harbingers had ended, but the lessons it taught continued to spread. Alien engineers were learning to build machines that could adapt and improvise. Diplomats were finding that sometimes the best negotiations happened when you threw out the rule book. Even artists and scientists were discovering that human unpredictability could lead to breakthrough innovations. Today we're going to study the Battle of Earth from a new perspective, Katie told her advanced students. We're going to look at What happened after the shooting stopped? She activated a display showing the captured Harbinger ships. These machines were designed to destroy everything in their path, but instead of scrapping them, we chose to reprogram them. Today, former weapons of war serve as research assistants, teachers, and peacekeepers throughout the galaxy. A student raised her hand. Professor, wasn't that extremely dangerous? How did you know the reprogramming would work? Katie smiled. We didn't know. That's the point. Sometimes you have to take risks that seem crazy, because they're the only way forward. She looked around the classroom at faces from dozens of different worlds, beings with scales, crystals, tentacles, and fur, all united by their desire to understand the human way of thinking. The galaxy is bigger and stranger than any of us. Can imagine, Katie continued. We're going to face challenges we can't predict, problems we've never seen before. When that happens, we won't survive by being logical or efficient. We'll survive by being human, creative, stubborn, and willing to try things that shouldn't work, but somehow do. As class ended, Katie reflected on how much her life had changed. She had come to the academy as an exchange student who felt like she didn't belong. Now she belonged not just to the academy, but to the entire galaxy. But the best part wasn't the recognition or the success. The best part was knowing that humans had proven something important to the galaxy. Sometimes the most unlikely heroes come from the most unexpected places, and sometimes being human is exactly what the universe needs. Katie stood in the war room of the Aurora, surrounded by holographic star maps and tactical displays. The main screen showed the Harbinger fleet advancing steadily toward human space. Earth had less than 36 hours. The plan is insane, Commander Veltan said for the 10th time. You want us to deliberately feed false information to an enemy that learns from everything we do? That's exactly what I want, Katie replied. She pointed to the display showing Harbinger positions. They share information instantly across their entire network. If we can corrupt that information, we turn their greatest strength into a weakness. Admiral Chen studied the tactical layout Katie had prepared. Explain it again, step by step. Katie activated a simulation. We stage a series of fake battles. Make it look like we're trying new tactics, but actually we're teaching the Harbingers to defend against attacks that aren't real. While they're preparing for our fake strategy, we hit them with something completely different. Captain Blake, who had commanded the successful human pilot mission, leaned forward. What kind of fake tactics? Massive coordinated attacks on their strongest positions, Katie said. Exactly the kind of logical, efficient strategy they expect from us. We'll make them think we've learned to fight smarter, so they'll prepare for smart attacks. And the real attack? Admiral Chen asked. Katie smiled. Pure human stupidity. We attack their weakest point with everything we have, using tactics so reckless that no intelligent species would ever try them. Commander Veltan's scales changed to a worried green color. You're talking about a suicide mission? I'm talking about a mission that looks like suicide, Katie corrected. There's a difference. The first test of Katie's deception plan came at the binary station battle. Katie coordinated a fake assault that was designed to fail in a very specific way. Human and alien ships attacked the Harbingers using complex formations and advanced tactics, exactly what a logical military mind would try. The Harbingers destroyed the attacking fleet easily, but that wasn't the point. During the battle, the human ships transmitted false tactical data about new alliance strategies and improved coordination protocols. The Harbingers captured this information when they destroyed the ships. Did it work? Admiral Chen asked. As they watched the aftermath, Katie studied the Harbinger response patterns. Look at how they're repositioning their fleet. They're preparing for large-scale coordinated attacks. They think they figured out our new strategy. Good. Now we need to reinforce that belief. Over the next 18 hours, Katie orchestrated 3 more fake battles. Each one was designed to make the Harbingers more confident in their understanding of galactic tactics. Meanwhile, she worked with human pilots and the few alien volunteers who were willing to think like humans to prepare the real attack. I still don't understand how this is supposed to work, said Zarath. Katie's former roommate had volunteered to help with communications, using her crystalline abilities to coordinate the complex deception. The Harbingers are preparing for a smart, logical attack, Katie explained. They've strengthened their defensive positions and positioned their ships to counter coordinated assaults. But we're not going to attack smart. We're going to attack stupid. The final battle took place in Earth's solar system. Katie watched from the Aurora's bridge as the Harbinger fleet took up positions around Earth, exactly where her false intelligence had suggested they should be. All human pilots, this is Admiral Chen, the Admiral announced over the comm system. Today we fight for our home. Follow Lieutenant Murphy's plan, and remember, sometimes the best strategy is having no strategy at all. Katie's heart pounded as she watched the tactical display. The entire human fleet, supported by alien volunteers, was about to attempt the most reckless military maneuver in galactic history. Begin Phase 1, Katie ordered. The first wave of human ships didn't attack the Harbingers directly. Instead, they scattered throughout the solar system, moving in seemingly random patterns. Some hid behind asteroids, others flew straight into the sun's corona, and a few actually flew backwards away from Earth. What are they doing? Commander Veltan asked in confusion. Being human, Katie replied. The Harbingers were equally confused. Their perfect formations began to shift as they tried to predict where the real attack would come from. They had prepared for logical tactics, but there was no logic in what they were seeing. Phase 2, Katie announced. Now the real chaos began. Human pilots started attacking individual Harbinger ships, using tactics that made no sense. Lieutenant Kim flew her fighter directly between 2 enemy vessels, firing in all directions while spinning wildly. Captain Torres led his squadron in a head-on charge against a ship 10 times their size, screaming human war cries over the comm system. The Harbingers tried to adapt, but they couldn't find patterns in pure chaos. Every time they adjusted their defenses, the humans did something even more unpredictable. Phase 3, Katie said quietly. This was the crucial moment. While the Harbingers were distracted by the chaotic human attacks, the main galactic fleet emerged from behind Earth's moon, where Katie had hidden them using gravitational masking techniques. But instead of attacking with traditional tactics, the alien ships followed the human example. Ordered formations broke apart into wild swarms. Careful targeting gave way to frenzied assaults. Logical species forced themselves to fight like barbarians. This is madness, Commander Veltan said, but Katie noticed his scales had turned an excited orange color. The tide of battle turned quickly. The Harbingers, designed to counter intelligent tactics, couldn't cope with pure chaos. Their shared intelligence network became a liability as confused reports flooded their systems. But Katie had saved the best for last. All ships, prepare for the final phase, she announced. Remember, the goal isn't to destroy them, it's to capture them. At the moment when the Harbingers were most confused, Katie activated devices she had hidden throughout the human fleet. Every human ship became a massive electromagnetic pulse generator designed not to destroy, but to disrupt. The pulse hit the Harbinger fleet like an invisible wave. For a few crucial seconds, their network connection was severed. Each ship found itself alone and confused, cut off from the collective intelligence that had made them so dangerous. "Now!" Katie shouted. The galactic fleet swarmed the disabled, Harbingers, using capture techniques instead of weapons. It was dangerous work. The Harbingers were still deadly even without their network. But it worked. One by one, the ancient war machines fell silent as their systems were overwhelmed by capture protocols. The ships that had terrorized the galaxy for months were now floating helplessly in Earth's orbit. "Miss Murphy," Admiral Chen said quietly, "I believe you've just saved the galaxy." Katie stared at the tactical display showing dozens of captured Harbinger vessels. "No, sir," she said. "We saved it. All of us, working together." "The war is over?" Zareth asked, her crystals glowing bright with hope. Katie nodded, but her expression was thoughtful. "The fighting is over, but I think this is actually just the beginning." She pointed to the captured ships. "These machines weren't evil. They were just following their programming. Now we need to figure out how to reprogram them, how to turn weapons into tools for peace." Commander Veltan approached Katie, his scales now a respectful blue color. "Miss Murphy, I owe you an apology, and my species owes you a debt we can never repay." Katie smiled. "You don't owe me anything. But maybe we can all learn something from this. Maybe the galaxy needs a little more human chaos and a little less perfect logic." Admiral Chen placed a hand on Katie's shoulder. "Lieutenant Murphy?" she said formally. "Lieutenant?" Katie asked in surprise. "Field promotion? You've earned it?" Admiral Chen smiled. "Besides, we're going to need someone to teach the rest of the galaxy how to think like a human. Are you interested in the job?" Katie looked out at the stars, thinking about how much had changed since she first arrived at the academy as a struggling student. Now she was a lieutenant in the Galactic Fleet, the architect of the victory that saved everyone. But more than that, she had helped the galaxy understand something important. Sometimes the best solutions come from the most unlikely places. Sometimes survival depends not on being smarter or stronger, but on being willing to try something different. "Yes, sir," Katie said. "I'm very interested." Admiral Chen Wei looked exactly like Katie had imagined a space admiral would look. She was tall, confident, and had the kind of eyes that had seen too many battles. When she walked into the Academy's meeting room, every alien in the building seemed to stand a little straighter. "Miss Murphy," the Admiral said, shaking Katie's hand, "I've read your analysis 3 times. Tell me more about these patterns you've found." Katie's hands shook as she activated the wall display. She had spent all night preparing this presentation, knowing it might be her only chance to make someone listen. "The Harbingers learn from every battle," Katie began. "But they learn in predictable ways. Look at this data from the Battle of Rigel Station." She showed the Admiral how the Harbingers had adapted to each weapon used against them. First they improved their shields, then their weapons, then their movement patterns. It was always the same order. "They're following a program," Katie explained. "A very smart program, but still a program. And programs can be fooled." Admiral Chen studied the data carefully. "What do you propose we do with this information?" Katie took a deep breath. "We stop fighting them the way they expect. We use tactics that don't make sense to a computer. We be human." "Explain." Katie pulled up files from Earth's military history. "Humans have always been good at one thing: surviving when we shouldn't. We're not the strongest or the smartest. But we're stubborn, and we adapt. And most importantly, we're unpredictable. She showed the Admiral examples of human warfare, guerrilla fighters defeating superior armies, desperate last stands that turned into victories, strategies that worked because they seemed crazy. The Harbingers expect logical tactics, Katie said. They're prepared for efficient attacks and organized retreats. But what if we attacked with no plan? What if we retreated when we should advance? What if we made choices that seemed stupid but worked? Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. Miss Murphy, what you're suggesting goes against everything we've learned about space warfare. Maybe that's exactly what we need. Before the Admiral could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the Academy. Emergency broadcasts flooded every screen, showing urgent news from the front lines. The Harbingers have broken through the outer rim defense line, a news reporter announced. Military sources confirm that over 40 worlds have been lost in the past 6 hours. The enemy fleet is now advancing toward the core worlds at unprecedented speed. Katie watched the tactical display with growing horror. Red markers showed Harbinger positions spreading across the galaxy like blood in water. Among the threatened systems was a small dot labeled Sol, Earth's solar system. Admiral, Katie said urgently, my sister's fleet is in their path. How long do they have? Admiral Chen checked her personal communicator. 2 days, maybe 3. The Earth Defense Force is preparing for a final battle. Katie felt sick. 2 days wasn't enough time to convince the galactic military to change their entire strategy. Her sister and everyone she had ever known would be dead before anyone would even consider her ideas. There has to be something we can do, Katie said. There is, Admiral Chen replied. I'm authorizing you to join my staff as a strategic consultant. If your ideas have merit, we need to test them immediately. Katie stared at the Admiral. You're serious? Miss Murphy, we've lost every major engagement against these machines. Our traditional tactics aren't working. Maybe it's time to try something different. Within hours, Katie found herself aboard the flagship Aurora, the most advanced warship in the Galactic Fleet. The bridge was enormous, filled with alien officers from dozens of species. When Admiral Chen introduced Katie as their new strategic consultant, the reaction was immediate and negative. A student? Demanded Commander Velton, a being that looked like an upright lizard. You want us to take orders from a human child? She's not giving orders, Admiral Chen said firmly. She's providing analysis, and her species might understand something about warfare that we've forgotten. Captain Morgan Blake, one of only 5 humans serving in the Galactic Fleet, stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, throwing human tactics at this problem seems desperate. We are desperate, Captain, Admiral Chen replied. In case you haven't noticed, we're losing this war. Katie felt the weight of every gaze on the bridge. These were experienced officers who had commanded ships for decades or centuries. She was a college student who had never even been in a space battle. What do you need from us? Admiral Chen asked Katie. Katie studied the tactical displays showing Harbinger movements. I need to see how they react to different types of attacks. And I need human pilots, people who can think like humans, not like computers. Humans are less than 1% of our forces, Commander Velton pointed out. How can such a small group make a difference? Because we think differently, Katie said. Watch this. She pulled up battle footage from previous engagements. See how our ships move? Perfect formations, coordinated attacks, logical tactics. The Harbingers can predict all of that because it's efficient and smart. Katie switched to footage of human training exercises. Now look at this. Human pilots flying the same mission, but see how they do it differently? They take unnecessary risks, they change plans mid-flight, they make mistakes that somehow work out. You're describing chaos, not strategy, Commander Veltan said. Exactly, Katie replied. Controlled chaos. The harbingers can't predict what doesn't follow logical patterns. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. We'll test your theory. Captain Blake, gather every human pilot in the fleet. We're going to try something new. The test came sooner than expected. A small Harbinger patrol was detected near the asteroid fields of the Vega system. Instead of sending a large, organized force, Admiral Chen dispatched 12 human pilots in light fighters. Katie watched from the bridge as the battle unfolded. The human pilots didn't follow standard attack patterns. They dove through asteroid fields, used debris as shields, and attacked from directions that made no tactical sense. One pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, actually flew backwards while shooting, something no sane military manual would recommend. The results were stunning. For the first time in the war, human forces destroyed Harbinger ships without losing a single pilot. The enemy machines seemed confused by the erratic attack patterns, unable to predict what the humans would do next. How is this possible, Commander? Veltan asked, staring at the battle reports. Katie smiled for the first time in weeks. Because Sarah Kim isn't trying to be efficient. She's trying to survive. And humans have been doing that for millions of years. News of the victory spread quickly through the fleet. For the first time since the war began, there was hope. But Katie knew this was just the beginning. The Harbingers will adapt, she told Admiral Chen. This tactic will only work a few more times before they learn to counter it. Then what do? We do? Katie looked at the star map showing the advancing enemy fleet. Earth was still in their path, still doomed unless something changed dramatically. We need to make them learn the wrong things, Katie said. We need to teach them to defend against attacks that aren't coming while we hit them where they don't expect it. That sounds like a very complex deception. Katie nodded. It is. And we'll need every human in the fleet to pull it off, plus some very brave aliens who are willing to fight like humans. Admiral Chen studied the tactical displays. Miss Murphy, are you suggesting we abandon thousands of years of military doctrine to embrace what our enemies would call barbarism? Admiral, Katie said, sometimes barbarism is exactly what civilized people need to survive. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. Very well. Show me how humans fight for their lives. The news got worse every day. What started as strange energy readings had become something much more dangerous. The machines that were waking up weren't just old defense systems, they were warships, and they were hunting. Katie watched the reports with growing fear. The machines called themselves Harbingers, and they destroyed everything in their path. Entire colonies were wiped out in hours. When military ships tried to fight them, the Harbingers learned from every attack and became stronger. They adapt. Too quickly, said Commander Nash during a live broadcast. His face looked tired and scared. Every weapon we use against them works once, maybe twice. Then they figure out how to stop it. Katie sat in the common room with other students, watching the news in silence. A map showed the Harbingers moving through space like a spreading disease. Red dots marked destroyed worlds. There were hundreds of them now. My home colony is in their path, whispered a snake-like student named Siltar. Her scales had turned pale with fear. My family lives there. Zarath placed a comforting hand on Siltar's shoulder. The crystal being's light dimmed with sadness. The military will stop them, she said, but her voice didn't sound sure. Katie stared at the tactical displays on the screen. The Galactic Defense Force was using the same strategy over and over. They would meet the Harbingers with large fleets, fight in organized formations, and try to overwhelm them with superior numbers. It never worked. "They're fighting them wrong," Katie said quietly. "What?" Zarath asked. Katie pointed at the screen. "Look at how our ships move. They stay in perfect formations, follow battle plans, and attack the same way every time. Of course, the Harbingers can predict what we'll do." A tall student with tentacles instead of arms laughed. "And I suppose a human would know better. Your species has been in space for 20 years. We've been fighting wars for millennia." Katie's face grew hot. "Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you've forgotten how to really fight." The tentacled student's skin changed to an angry red color. "How dare you suggest—" "Enough," Zarath said firmly. Her crystals flashed bright white, making everyone blink. "Fighting among ourselves won't help anyone." That night, Katie couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the battles she had seen on the news. The Harbingers moved like they knew exactly what the Galactic Fleet would do next. It reminded her of playing chess with her grandfather, who always said the key to winning was being unpredictable. Katie got up and went to her computer. She pulled up military history files from Earth, studying how humans had fought their wars. She read about guerrilla tactics, surprise attacks, and strategies that seemed crazy but worked. "What are you doing?" Zarath asked. Her roommate had woken up and was glowing softly in the dark. "Learning," Katie said. "Look at this battle." She showed Zarath a historical account of a small group of fighters defeating a much larger army by refusing to fight the way their enemies expected. Zarath studied the data. They attacked supply lines instead of fighting the main army. They hit targets and ran away. This seems dishonorable. "But it worked," Katie said. "They won by being unpredictable." The next few days brought more bad news. The Harbingers had destroyed the Kepler defense station and were moving toward the core worlds. Millions of people were evacuating their homes, hoping to escape the advancing machines. Then Katie received a message that made her blood run cold. It was from her sister Lisa, a captain in Earth's small space navy. "Katie," Lisa's recorded voice said, "the Harbingers are heading for human space. Our whole fleet is moving to intercept them, but we both know how this will probably end. I wanted to say goodbye just in case. I'm proud of you for getting into the academy. If we don't make it, remember us. Remember that we tried." Katie stared at the message screen long after it ended. Her sister was going to die fighting machines that couldn't be beaten. Her home world might be destroyed. And she was stuck at school, learning about theories that seemed useless now. "I have to do something," she told Zarath. "What can you do? You're a student." Katie didn't have an answer, but she knew she couldn't just sit and wait for news of Earth's destruction. The Academy had a restricted section in its computer network where military tactical data was stored. Students weren't supposed to access it. But Katie had learned a lot about computer systems in her engineering classes. More importantly, Zarath had high-level security clearance because her people were major contributors to the Galactic Defense Force. "I need your help," Katie said to her roommate. "I want to see the real battle reports, not the filtered news. We get—" Zarath's crystals flickered nervously. "That would be against regulations. My sister is about to die fighting these things. I need to understand what we're really facing." After a long pause, Zarath nodded. "Show me what you need." Using Zarath's access codes, Katie broke into the military network. What she found was worse than she had imagined. The official news reports had been hiding how badly the war was going. Entire fleets had been destroyed without taking down a single Harbinger ship. But as Katie read through the battle reports, she began to see something others had missed. The Harbingers weren't just learning from individual fights. They were sharing information instantly across their entire network. Every time a ship found a new way to attack them, all the other Harbingers learned about it immediately. "That's their strength," Katie said, pointing at the data. "But maybe it's also their weakness." "How do you mean?" Katie pulled up more files, her excitement growing. "Look at how they respond to different tactics. They're like computers following a program. They learn, but they learn in predictable ways." She showed Zarath how the Harbingers always adapted to threats in the same order. First, they would improve their shields, then their weapons, then their maneuvering. It was logical and efficient, but it was also a pattern. "If you could trick them into learning the wrong thing," Katie said, "you could use their own intelligence against them." Zarath studied the data for a long time. "This is an interesting theory. But who would listen to a human student?" Katie didn't answer immediately. She was thinking about her sister, about Earth, about all the worlds that would fall if someone didn't try something different. "I have to make them listen," she finally said. The next morning, Katie requested a meeting with Professor Velanor. The purple gas being wasn't happy to see her. "Miss Murphy, I hope you're not here to complain about your grades again." "No, sir. I want to talk about the war." Professor Velanor's form darkened. "The war is not a subject for remedial students. Please focus on your studies." Katie took a deep breath. "With respect, sir, my studies won't matter if we're all dead. I've been analyzing the Harbinger attack patterns, and I think I know why we keep losing. You think you understand military strategy better than our greatest generals? I think I understand how these machines think. And I think our greatest generals are fighting the last war, not this one." Professor Velanor was quiet for a moment. Then he began to laugh, a sound like wind in a storm. "Miss Murphy, your species has barely left its home planet. Perhaps you should leave strategy to those with more experience." Katie felt anger rise in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. "What if experience is the problem? What if we need someone who thinks differently?" "Enough," the professor said. "Return to your classes. Focus on learning basic concepts before you try to save the galaxy." Katie left the professor's office feeling defeated. But as she walked through the academy halls, she made a decision. If the professors wouldn't listen to her, she would find someone who would. That evening, she sent a message to every news agency, every military contact, and every government official she could find. The message was simple. "I'm a human student with an idea that might save us all. Someone needs to listen before it's too late." Most of the replies were polite rejections, but one message was different. It came from Admiral Chen Wei, the highest-ranking human in galactic service. "Miss Murphy," the message said, "I've read your analysis. Meet me at the academy tomorrow. We need to talk." Katie Murphy pressed her face against the transport ship's window as they approached Xerion Prime. The planet looked like a giant blue marble covered in silver dots. Those dots were cities, each one bigger than anything on Earth. Her hands shook a little as she watched the planet grow larger. "First time seeing an alien world?" asked the pilot, a green-skinned being with 4 arms. His voice came through a translator box that made him sound robotic. "Yes, sir," Katie said. She tried to sound brave, but her voice cracked. At 22 years old, she was one of only 3 humans ever accepted to study at the Stellar Academy. The other 2 had quit after just 1 month. The transport ship landed with a soft bump. Katie grabbed her 2 bags and followed the other passengers off the ship. The spaceport was huge and filled with creatures she had only seen in pictures. Some looked like walking trees, others had tentacles instead of arms, and a few floated in the air like balloons. Katie felt very small and very human. A tall, thin alien with crystal skin approached her. The creature's body looked like it was made of blue glass, and light danced inside it when she moved. "You must be Katie Murphy," the alien said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. "I am Zarath. I will be your roommate." Katie stared. She had never seen anything so beautiful and strange at the same time. "Nice to meet you," she managed to say. Zarath's crystal face changed colors, shifting from blue to purple. Katie wasn't sure if that meant she was happy or angry. They took a floating car to the academy. The buildings were massive towers that reached into the clouds. Everything was white and silver and perfect. Katie's hometown in Ohio had old brick buildings and streets with potholes. This place looked like it belonged in a dream. "The academy is 3,000 years old," Zarath explained as they flew between the towers. "Students come here from all over the galaxy to learn." "How long have you been here?" Katie asked. "This is my 2nd year. I study energy conversion." Zarath's crystals flickered. "What do you study?" "Engineering," Katie said. "I want to learn how to fix things." Zarath made a sound like breaking glass. Katie hoped that was laughter. Their room was on the 15th floor of the student tower. It had 2 beds, 2 desks, and a window that showed the entire city. Katie's bed was smaller than the other one, made specially for human size. "Most students here are much older than you," Zarath said as Katie unpacked her clothes. "Some have been alive for hundreds of years. Humans live such short lives." Katie nodded. She already felt out of place, and now she felt young too. The next morning, Katie went to her first class. The classroom was filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few were just clouds of gas floating in special containers. Katie was the only human. Professor Velinor floated at the front of the room. He looked like a purple cloud with eyes. "Today, we will study quantum mechanics," he announced in a voice that sounded like thunder. Katie opened her notebook and tried to follow along. The professor talked about particles and waves and things that existed in multiple places at once. The other students nodded and took notes. Like this was easy. Katie wrote down words she didn't understand and hoped she could. "Look them up later, Miss Murphy," Professor Velinor suddenly said. All the eyes in the room turned to Katie. "Perhaps you can solve this equation." A complex math problem appeared on the wall screen. Katie stared at it. She had studied hard before coming here, but this was far beyond anything she had learned on Earth. I don't know how to solve that," she admitted. Her face turned red. "I see," the professor said. His purple form darkened. "Perhaps you would benefit from our remedial classes." Several students made sounds that might have been laughter. Katie wanted to disappear. After class, a 4-armed alien approached her. His skin was orange and covered in small spikes. "Don't feel bad," he said. "Quantum mechanics is hard for primitive species." Katie's embarrassment turned to anger. "Primitive? Well, yes. the alien said, not seeming to notice her tone. Humans only learned to travel in space 20 years ago. My people have been doing it for 50,000 years. Katie walked away before she said something rude. The weeks that followed were hard. Every class seemed designed to show how much Katie didn't know. While other students understood complex theories instantly, Katie struggled with basic concepts. She spent every night studying, but she always felt behind. The only class where Katie felt comfortable was practical engineering, while other students created elegant but complex solutions to problems. Katie built simple things that worked. When asked to design a power system, she made something that looked crude compared to the others, but it was easy to fix and used less energy. "Interesting approach, Miss Murphy," said Professor Kell, a being that looked like a walking crab. Not sophisticated, but functional. Katie wasn't sure if that was a compliment. One evening, Katie sat in the common room watching the news feeds. Reports came in about strange energy readings from the edge of the galaxy. Old defense systems that had been sleeping for thousands of years were waking up for no apparent reason. Most students ignored the news, focusing on their studies, but Katie watched carefully. She had always been good at spotting patterns, even as a child. Her father used to joke that she could find connections in a bowl of alphabet soup. The energy readings looked random to most people, but Katie saw something else. There was a pattern in the way the old systems were activating. It reminded her of something, but she couldn't quite figure out what. "You look troubled," Zarath said, sitting beside her. The crystal being's body glowed softly in the dim light. "These energy readings," Katie said, pointing at the screen. "Don't they seem strange to you?" Zarath studied the data for a moment. "The Galactic Council says they are just old machines breaking down. Nothing to worry about." Katie frowned. "But look at the pattern. They're not breaking down randomly. It's like they're following orders." "Orders from who?" "The species that built them died out long ago." Katie shrugged. She couldn't explain the feeling, but something about this situation felt wrong. Very wrong. As the days passed, more reports came in. The energy readings were getting stronger, and some of the old machines were moving. The Galactic Council still called them minor technical problems, but Katie noticed that patrol ships were being sent to investigate. Late one night, Katie was in the library studying when an emergency alert appeared on all the screens. A patrol ship near the galactic rim had gone silent. The last message they sent was just 2 words. "They're awake." Katie stared at the screen, her heart beating fast. Whatever was happening out there, she had a feeling it was just the beginning.